today we are talking about the power of no. But that wasn't the reality. The reality was I was kind of in reactionary mode to when are people going to reach out to me to ask for my services, ask for my business. And when am I going to make sales? That was one side. The other side of it, because I was so obsessed with that and because it was not working, I would carry the same energy into my home, whether I was with my kid or I was with my wife or somebody else. There was like a voice running in the background, like, you know, those you listen to a song and that gets stuck in your head for days. But this would be like, oh, when is the next sale going to come from? When is this going to come from? What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? And so that reaction determined how I operated every day. It was reaction to that thought process around the business side. The same reaction would carry into my life. And pretty much my days were structured around how I would react. Thank you for joining us here for this video. We've noticed that there are a certain percentage or a high percentage of our audience haven't subscribed to our channel. If you can please click on the button to subscribe to the channel, it will help us create more content. Which will help us reach more amazing people like you, to support them, to serve them. So please click on the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye. But today we are talking about the power of no. I never know if you're seeing it. Are you seeing it the right way or the wrong way? The right way? Okay. Because I think I've mirrored it there. The power of no. We'll go through why it's important to say no. We all kind of intellectually know this, but I want to drill down a little bit about why it's important, what happens when we do say no or when we do say yes to something, what is the cost of it, and what are the things we need to say no to, what are the things we need to say yes to. And this can be a huge conundrum, especially if you're somebody who is juggling multiple things, from your personal life to your professional life, or multiple businesses, or a job in a business, whatever that looks like in your world. There are so many opportunities for you to either say yes, usually a lot of opportunities to say yes, and the harder thing to do is to say no. And I'll start with a story around this. Years ago, and if you looked at my life, I'd say 8 years ago or a decade ago, this is what it looked like. I would wake up in the morning. First thing I did was check my email. And that was around the time when I started a business as well. And I kept refreshing the email. And this is why I refreshed the email. Some of it, like, how come nobody's sending me messages to ask for my services? How come nobody's responding back? I'm like, is there something wrong with my email? To the point where there was actually one time there was something wrong with my email, but that was it kind of made me feel better for a moment, because I talked to the customer service. They're like, yeah, for 2 days, there was something wrong with your system. I'm like, oh, there might have been so many messages come through. But that wasn't the reality. The reality was I was kind of in reactionary mode to when are people going to reach out to me to ask for my services, ask for my business, and when am I going to make sales? That was one side. The other side of it, because I was so obsessed with that and because it was not working, I would carry the same energy into my home, whether I was with my kid or I was with my wife or somebody else. There was like a voice running in the background, like, you know, those you listen to a song and that gets stuck in your head for days. But this would be like, oh, when is the next sale going to come from? When is this going to come from? What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? And so that reaction determined how I operated every day. It was reaction to that thought process around the business side. The same reaction would carry into my life. And pretty much my days were structured around how I would react. I would do certain things. I would try a bunch of stuff, but they were in reaction to that thought process. And I'll share the opposite of that too in a little bit. For years, that didn't work. For 2 to 3 years, that didn't work. And then finally, as I sat down with my coach, and one of the things that I was asked was, well, how do you make decisions? How do you make decisions around saying yes to something versus no to something else? First of all, I hadn't even thought about that. And I'm like, well, I'll say yes to anything. right now because I need business. It's like, well, that's good, but you still need some kind of structure. When you look at your calendar, how do you structure your days? How do you put something on your calendar versus you don't? How do you put meetings? How do you, like, I don't know. I'm waiting for people to put themselves on my calendar. It's like, huh, interesting. Do you have control over that? And my answer is no. It's like I can only reach out to people. I can only connect to people. I don't have control over who gets on my calendar on the sales side. But in the meantime, I had control over who I can reach out to, I could put on my calendar. And same thing on my personal side. I would say to myself that I don't have time for the personal side, but usually when I would sit there, I'm thinking about what am I going to do today to get more business, more clients, and those kind of things. So everything was in reaction to that fear of not having clients or that reaction of not getting business or not understanding my marketing and sales process, all that stuff. I didn't have any control over my calendar, my time, and hence my energy was constantly drained. But over time, what I learned was that I need to create a routine where, in the craziness of business, the uncertainties of the world, I have some level of control over what am I doing. And I didn't know it at the time, but it created something powerful that no matter what was happening in business, I started doing very similar things. And it started with a vision that, you know what, here's what I want my life to look like when I am successful. I want my life to be like this. I wanted to wake up on Monday mornings excited to start my day and my week. I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to do certain work to connect with people. And that could be on the marketing side. But I didn't frame it as marketing. I wanted to reach more people because I thought my message was important. I wanted to work with somebody on a consistent basis. In fact, I made a decision that it didn't matter what I did, 5 days out of the week, I had to coach somebody, even if that was one person a day. And that was a commitment I think I made around 7, 8 years ago. And to this day, I've kept that commitment, minus vacation weeks or some weird weeks where I'm doing focus on some project on the marketing side. I always have a group or one-on-one session schedule. In fact, that's one of the best ways I feel like a coach. I feel motivated. I feel like I'm serving people. So here's what started happening. I started actually structuring things into my calendar. I stopped waiting for my email to send me something. I started putting down, you know what? Every Monday morning, I start with looking at what do I need to do for the month, for the week, and that started becoming more and more and more. And I started putting down who do I need to reach out to. I wasn't waiting for people anymore. I started reaching out to people. I started connecting with people on a regular basis. And I started actually finding people to coach and train. I didn't care if it was free, paid, one-on-one group. I'm like, this is my job. If I'm not coaching people, I'm not a coach. I don't care how much marketing I do. Like I need to reach out to somebody. And so I started reaching out to people like a crazy person, whether they wanted it or not. And I started coaching people, family, friends, whoever. And then I started putting down like the things that were connecting my vision around what my ideal life looked like. So I started putting down like even 30 minutes of taking care of myself, even points where I would take a break and feel like, you know what, I deserve that break throughout the day, even though I don't have the clients, even though I don't have the business yet. I started reaching out to other people to connect with them to do joint ventures of different kinds on the business side. A lot of times it didn't work, sometimes it worked. Basically, I started to see a structure develop on my calendar, and pretty soon, when I would get an email or a call, I'd be like, you know, I have something on my calendar for that time. Let me take a look at it. Would you be able to do this? And that's when the magic happened. Is that I wasn't saying yes anymore. I was saying no, or I was redirecting to a time that was available. And the reason why I'm sharing this is that it started with the intention that I'm not going to be reactive to what I don't have. I'm going to be proactive in what I do want to create in my life. And that was based on a vision. That was based on a goal system. That was based on a strategy. rather than, oh my God, what's going on with the economy? Oh my God, what's going on? Why aren't there clients coming in? Or this problem, that problem? Why is this person not doing this? No. Here are the things I have control over. I'm gonna show up every day to do this. So that takes us to our first main point. This is why I work so much on this, is we say no to anything that doesn't align with our vision and goals, which already implies that we need to understand what our vision for our life is and what our goals are. And if you're in a relationship in your personal life with a life partner, in your business with a business partner, you need to know the other person what they want ideally, because your part will be incomplete. And that is a more complex part, is that I needed to understand how my wife wanted our life to be. And now, as our kids are growing older, I'm getting feedback from them. What kind of life do they see? Like, where do they have fun? Where do they connect? Where do they get disconnected? Where do they feel too much pressure from us? Where do they feel challenged? Where do they feel excited? Where do they feel anything? So I'm getting their input. As I started partnering up with people on business side, I started asking what are they looking for? I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my partners, how they're structuring their life, because our personal lives are different. Is this business still aligned with their path? And then have a common vision that supports both of us. And then I started hiring people. When I started hiring people, I started to dig in more around, like, what's their ambition? What are they trying to do with their lives? It doesn't matter if they work for me. I need to understand how I can support them. What is their ambition in this process? How do we align? And so that really starts the process of thinking intentionally and strategically at multiple level. And here's the challenge, that most people don't even have that vision and don't have a clear goal system. That means that this is what I'm focused on before they say yes or no to anybody. So whatever you're saying yes or no to, you don't even know the consequences of. And so, which leads me to the next part. Whenever you're saying yes to something, whenever you're saying yes to something, you got to ask this question from yourself. And this is what helped me a lot when I didn't have a clear vision and goals when I was building it. What am I saying no to? So if I'm saying yes to a business opportunity, what am I saying no to here? In other words, we're talking about what is the cost of the yes. And a lot of times it's not apparent what the cost is. The cost is not always apparent. We think that, okay, for example, I'll give you some examples of it. And marketing is really, people who are marketers are really good at this. For example, they'll say, hey, I have a free session coming up at this time, or here's a free sample of the thing. Here's the open house for this thing. And it's free. And it's like, I'm going to go. You say yes to that. You're saying no to, in those 2 to 3 hours of time, to your energy and to your time. So you better ask yourself, what am I saying no to when I say yes to this opportunity? If you, and it goes on the personal side too, if you say yes to a personal decision, for example, you stay up at night to do something until 2 in the morning, whatever. What am I saying no to in the morning? I can't wake up. I can't go to the gym. I can't do my normal stuff. I have to catch up with a bunch of stuff. I'm saying yes to that. There's a cost to it. So, and to clearly kind of articulate that, whenever we say yes to something, we're saying no to. No, sorry. Moving on from there, whenever you say yes to that something, where there's a cost to that. The cost is not always measured in money. A lot of times it's measured in energy, time, sanity. And sanity can be connected to energy, but I wanted to kind of highlight that because we can give up our sanity by starting a new opportunity, by getting into something, a new partnership that we weren't prepared for, and money. Most people, they might just think about money, or they might just think about, I don't know if I have the time for that, but there's a lot more in there. What about your energy, your mental, physical, emotional energy, your sanity, your time with your loved ones? Again, ultimately it's your decision, but if you're not even thinking about the cost for the yes, then you're not making a clear decision. And this is the power of having a vision and having a structure. And this is why I don't even need to say no most of the time. If somebody gives me an opportunity, I'm like, hold on. And that could be my wife, that could be my loved ones, that could be my business partner. Hold on, let me look at my calendar. Okay, well, that time doesn't actually work. What about this other time? Or the recurring things that I know, for example, I know I need to get off at 5:30. Unless it's an exception, I don't have anything scheduled after 5:30. Or Fridays after 1 p.m. I don't have anything scheduled. Unless it's an exception. And those exceptions, this better be a really good reason that I'm doing that. And exceptions are by the nature of exception once or twice, maybe a year. And it's hard to stick to those things. And it requires, for me, it required me to connect to, again, this connects back to the vision. My vision required me to be a kind of person with a certain type of value system, which means that at 5:30 when I'm done, I have a value system that my family is just as important as my work. And that's not an easy decision as a business owner because there are always things to do. There are always things to complete. There are always more opportunities. But what is the cost of that? The cost of that is my kids are growing up and I want to be in their lives. That's my value system. It doesn't have to be somebody else's. In fact, I'll share a story of this. My younger daughter, I think I might have shared a version of this before. She often says stuff like this. She'll look at me. She's 6 years old. She'll be like, especially when I'm working. She's like, "Baba, you want to play tag?" I'm like, "Ah, I can't right now, but I can do it later on when I'm done work. We can play tag." She's like, "I hate coaching." She'll look at me and she's very blunt, and she knows. I'm like, "Why do you hate coaching?" The way she says it too, she's so straightforward, and she just looks at me and is like, "It's just taking up my time." It's like, why do you have to work? But no, and the same thing I say to her, I'll say to somebody on the business side, like, hey, listen, when I'm with you, when I'm done work, I'm with you. Do you ever see Baba on his phone doing something else when I'm with you? Do I pay attention? And I have to model that because if I'm not doing that, she'll call it out. They're very good at that. Most of the time I'm with them. If I am on my phone, I'm telling them, hey, I got to take care of this thing. But I tell them, like, just as it's important for Baba it is to be with you at that time, it's important for me to be with my clients and with my work. And you might not understand it right now, but it's important for me to do that. Even as a 6 year old, she'll look at me and she'll give me a look and she'll walk away. But she gets it. She gets it. Okay, I'm fully with her when I'm done. And she sees the value of that at least. And again, that has to be connected to a vision of the kind of person you want to be. I don't have to be 100% like that, but that's the kind of person I want to aspire to be in my family. That's how I want my kids to look at me. And so, yes, I'm saying a bunch of no's to business opportunities when I'm done at 5:30, but I'm saying yes to something that's even more important at times. And the same thing is true on the other side. When you're saying no, what am I protecting? But looking at it in a different way. Whenever you're saying no, you're protecting something. And this is also important for us to ask this question. So, whenever you say no to an investment opportunity, whenever you say no to a personal opportunity, whenever you say no to, let's say, I don't know, taking care of yourself or break, what are you protecting? You got to think about that. Same exact things: time, money, energy, sanity. You're protecting one of these. The problem is that we do this so automatically, we don't know why we're doing it. And the most important thing is to pause, whether you're saying yes or no. What am I saying no to when I say yes to this thing? For example, you're here at this time. This better be important. And I say that genuinely. Like, this better add some value to your life. And it's important enough for you to think differently for your life for you to show up here. If it's not, I would even recommend don't show up here. And I say that directly to all my clients. Don't show up to a session where you don't think it's the most important thing in that week, unless you see value in this helping you grow. And I say that at the risk of it. Like, this better be good for people to show up or not. So the other side is also true. When you're saying yes to something, what are you saying no to? When you're saying no to something, what are you protecting in the background? And that will tell you a lot about how you make decisions. And ultimately, as leaders, as business owners, our whole life revolves around better decisions. Better decision on investments, better decision on our time, better decision on our relationships that we're going to commit to, better decision on our well-being. There are times where I've said no to like really good opportunities because I know a person, how that person is. I'm like, if I have to show up to this meeting every week and I have to deal with this person, I will ruin my well-being. it will not be worth it for me, even though this would have been a good opportunity on the money side and thing. But am I willing to deal with this person for the next 6 months? The answer was no to me. And I've said no to that. Like, no, I'm not. It's like I want to be excited to jump on the call with my partners, with my team members. That's not always true, like 100% of the time, because there are conflicts you're dealing with, challenges you're dealing with. But on average, I want to be able to be excited there, and that's a value I have around. What is that value based on the vision for the kind of environment I want around me? Why? Because my sanity, my health is important to me. My days are important to me. My time is limited on this earth. Who do I want to deal with? I'll pause there. And as a summary, probably the most important letter and your dictionary needs to be no. Not because you want to be an ass or you want to say to no a bunch of people just for the heck of it, but because this creates a clear boundary around what you're going to focus on. That's why people call it boundary, but they don't know what they mean. But this means that this protects your vision, goals, and strategy moving forward, long term and short term, which already means that you got to be super clear about what matters to you. Because if you're not, it's very easy to say yes to a bunch of stuff that don't matter to you. That could be multiple different opportunities. That could be all kinds of stuff that later on you look at it as like, why did I say yes to that? And every time you say no, and every time you say yes, you got to understand what you're saying no to and assess it. If it's worth it, great. If it's not, change that, but be conscious in that process. Whenever you're saying no to something, what are you saying yes to? That's also important. And I like the process of systematizing the whole thing, which to me, a calendar system, reminders, a project system, a long-term goal system, a short, they make it automatic, but in a more intentional way, versus trying to figure out who you're going to say no to when your whole calendar is open and there's nothing on it. It's too much energy to figure out what you're going to say yes and no to. So what we're talking about is creating a clear system where no and yes becomes simpler because decisions take a lot of energy. And I'll pause here. I'd love to know if you can put in the chat, what was your biggest insight out of this specifically for you? What is the thing that you're going to take away with you and you're going to think about or work on?